All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Avery Young here, and welcome back to the Storyteller's Corner, episode 23. And Merry Christmas to you all once again. I know I've been saying Merry Christmas a lot on these past few live streams, but you know what? It's true, and I like wishing people a Merry Christmas because you know what? Everyone deserves it. And I mean, this holiday is extremely special. This was a holiday that stopped a war. And it is that one day where the term peace on earth and goodwill towards men really means something. So I think I solved the issue with my mic on the live stream before. So hooray, finally. That was an issue before, and I really hated that I had to redo the live stream so many times. Oh, hi, Crazy Anime Gamer. Welcome. I am doing great. I still have some Christmas presents to wrap, but I got my peppermint tea, I got some candy cane kisses, and yeah, I got cats running around in the background because they're extremely hyper. So yeah, just been enjoying the Christmas season when I can, and I am super excited for Christmas morning because I don't gotta go to work on Christmas morning, and I also got a special surprise for all of you, my lovely viewers, because I got a special Christmas present for you that I'm super excited for you all to see. And I worked really hard on it. So yeah, as per usual, just going to do a little bit of commentary, and then I will get to the third and final part of The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum, the same fellow who gave us the Wizard of Oz, among other things. So now you guys can hear me, right? I've had to fiddle with the microphone so many times that it was just starting to bother me. So you guys can hear me, right? Please let me know that I am being heard, and it's not just the music that you guys can hear. I had a cat years ago that was like falling super belly. Olive was a good kitty. Aw, I'm sorry, mate. Olive, rest in peace. But I'm glad that they were a good kitty. But yeah, you guys can hear me, right? It's not just the music that you can hear. I want to make sure that I'm being heard. That way I can tell the story to you guys, because I had a lot of work fiddling and screwing with the microphone so that way it would work and it would actually pick me up. So you guys can hear me, right? I'm coming through okay along with the music. Sorry. Adjust my position just a little bit. So you guys can hear me, right? I am being heard. I'll feel a bit more comfortable once I get a sign that I can be heard, because can't speak for everyone else, but you sound clear to me. Okay, good, thank goodness. Because last part two, the part 2 live stream, I had to restart it at least 3 times, and then I ended up having to have my headphones on and speak through the mic. But I am glad you're able to hear me. That makes me so happy, because it means finally I solved the problem. Hurrah! Anyway, yeah, one more song and then I'll get to part 3. So, good afternoon from Massachusetts. Hi, Matt Newcomb. You can hear me too, right? Just making sure. But yeah, welcome. We're at the final part of the Life and Adventures of Santa Claus story, where we talk about his old age. And I know some of you are probably wondering, it's like, well, it's okay, good. You can hear me. Yay! I solved the problem. Yay! That makes me happy. Hooray! Anyway, and I know some of you are probably wondering, it's like, why are you dressed in all black? You look kind of morose for someone who's super excited for Christmas. Well, again, I dress to fit the story, and part 3 tells the story of Claus's old age. And that's the thing. Old age comes for everyone. No one can avoid it, and usually after old age comes death. Last part in the Life and Adventures of Krampus! Oh my gosh, Matt, you and your Krampus. Which, again, I still think Santa Claus would try and be friends with him. But, yeah. Old age comes for everyone, and following old age is death. In the animated version of The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, it is described as the angel of death coming to take away Claus's soul. Father Time is undefeated after all. Yes, no one can defeat Father Time, and no one can live forever. No man was born ever to live forever. Also, the one species that is affected by old age is jellyfish. Yeah, well, jellyfish are a different story, and jellyfish are not people, and people are not jellyfish. So, ergo, totally different thing. But we've seen a lot of Santa Claus's life. We have seen him grow in the forests of Brazil as an innocent child, and we have seen him grow into a young man and eventually become the beloved toy maker that we know and love today. Now, as I mentioned before, death comes for everyone. But there's something comforting about that. I mean, where I stand with my faith and my beliefs, I know where I'm going in the end. And so, personally, I myself, I'm not afraid of dying. It's just the process, or rather, I'm not afraid of death. It's just the process that I get to death that worries me a little, because I'd like to go as quickly and as painlessly as possible. But hopefully that won't be for another long period of time. I'd like to at least get married and become a mother and have my own children before I, kick the bucket and check out my living card. But yeah. And I'm trying to figure it out because I remember there was a quote that described. Now I remember. There's a bug called a water bear that can live for thousands of years. It can survive in space for a while. A truly magnificent creature. Yes, but water bears are not people, and people are not water bears. And I remember the quote that I was going to say because in the recent Pinocchio film, directed by Del Toro, I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful film. But death is described as this, and there go my speakers because my speakers are horrible and they don't like me. There we go. Much better. Okay. All right. After this song, then I will get to the story. But yeah, life is described by Del Toro as this. It's like, what makes life truly precious is how fleeting it is. And the whole thing with the Del Toro story is that Pinocchio isn't a real boy. He doesn't become a real boy at the end. He remains living forever. And that's the thing, because he is immortal, he can't die. And I highly recommend Del Toro's Pinocchio. And you really need to see it for yourself to believe it, but I really love the whole film. And I really like how it does stick closer to the story, but it also adds its own unique twists and turns to it. But yes. So, yeah, if anyone is wondering, that is why I'm all dressed in black and looking like I'm getting ready for a funeral. It's because we're going over the story of Claus's old age and what happens to him after the defeat of the Aguas and after he eventually becomes the good Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus. And there go my speakers again, because my speakers all hate me. My goodness gracious. Persnickety things. Honestly, I don't want to live longer than 85. I've seen how age affects my family. Also, side comment, how many Pinocchios have we gotten in 2022? Sure, we'll listen to one more song and then I'll get to the story. But to answer that question, I think we've gotten like at least 3. We have gotten the horrible Disney live-action remake, which I have already ripped into and snarled about in my Pinocchio trilogy live stream, where I read that entire story to you guys. So we got the live-action Disney one. We got the Pinocchio, A True Story Adventure. I've only seen reviews of that one, and it looks kind of pretty, but I mean, Pinocchio sounds so weird. It sounds so weird, for lack of a better term. And then the third Pinocchio we've gotten, which I personally think is the best Pinocchio out of that trilogy, is the Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is wonderful, and I highly recommend you see it. Even if you haven't seen the story, like the original story of Pinocchio, I still highly recommend it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we've gotten at least 3 Pinocchios this year, and I don't know why the fascination for Pinocchio happened or like surged this year. Like, maybe people were fascinated by the story. Maybe it's because it was in the public domain that they wanted to try and use it for movie making. I don't know. Immortality is a curse. Who'd want to live forever? Witnessing countless wars and plagues, witnessing countless extinctions of multiple species, all while being unable to die yourself? Scary. Yeah, it kind of is. And I mean, technically, well, I'm not going to get into it, but I mean, at the very least, like a human body is temporary, but a soul is immortal. Souls technically can't die. So, but yeah, it would I would not be able to handle immortality or living forever because I wouldn't be able to handle being alone and watching my family die and not being able to do anything about it. That would be a really hard pill for me to swallow. Anyway, we're getting kind of depressed over here. So anyway, but yeah, immortality is a curse. But anyway. So after the commentary, this now brings us to the third part of the life and adventures of Santa Claus. Now, for those who don't know, and eventually I will edit the description so it does have the parts 1 and 2 live streams in it. Father, when can I leave to be on my own? I heard the Weird Voice Pinocchio on DVD. It's bad. I've gathered countless friends for watch parties. It's worse than 2022 Disney one. I say both are equally bad. But I mean, at least Pinocchio, A True Story is pretty looking. I like the designs. And that's about it. I mean, but yeah, each to their own. But personally, I think both of those are bad, and the only good one I really like is Del Toro. So, Matt Newcomb, ouchie, ouch. Yes, but we've read through the story. We've seen Claus grow up as a kid in Brazil and become an adult and a kind-hearted toy maker, giving toys to all the children in the world. Now this is the third story. The third story in the book, and it is the shortest as well. It only has 3 chapters. Pinocchio gets shot up in it by a cat with a gun. Yes, I've seen the reviews, but yes. The story of Claus's old age only has 3 chapters, so it will be the shortest out of all the live streams I've done. Unless I can find an equally short story to top it off, so... Oh, whoops, lost my place. First Christmas tree. Okay, so old age, and here's the illustration. As soon as I can, I really do need to get my own copy. Why am I holding this pencil? My goodness. So here's the illustration. Chapter 1st, The Mantle of Immortality. And now we come to a turning point in the career of Santa Claus. It is my duty to relate the most remarkable circumstance that had happened since the world began or mankind was created. We have followed the life of Claus from the time he was found a helpless infant by the wind nymph Nacille and reared to manhood in the great forest of Berzee. And we know how he began to make toys for children, and how, with the assistance and goodwill of the immortals, he was able to distribute them to the little ones throughout the world. For many years he carried on this noble work, for the simple, hard-working life he led gave him perfect health and strength, and doubtless a man can live longer in the beautiful Laughing Valley, where there are no cares and everything is peaceful and merry, than any other part of the world. But when many years had rolled away, Santa Claus grew old. The long beard of golden brown that once covered his cheeks and chin gradually became gray, and finally turned pure white. His hair was white too, and there were wrinkles in the corners of his eyes, which showed plainly when he laughed. He had never been a very tall man, and now he became fat, and waddled very much like a duck when he walked. But in spite of these things, he remained as lively as ever, and was just as jolly and gay, and his kind eyes sparkled as brightly as they did the first day when he came to the Laughing Valley. Yet a time is sure to come when every mortal who has grown old and lived his life is required to leave this world for another. So it is no wonder that, after Santa Claus had driven his reindeer on many and many a Christmas Eve, those staunch friends finally whispered among themselves that they had probably drawn his pledge for the last time. Then all the forest of Berzee came sad, and all the Laughing Valley was hushed every living thing that had known Claus and had used to love him and to brighten at the sound of his footsteps or the notes of his merry whistle. No doubt the old man's strength was at last exhausted, for he had made no more toys, and lay on his bed as in a dream. Just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna plug in my laptop. That way it doesn't die on me when I'm on the live stream. Sorry about that. Got some bottles down there for an art project, so let me just make sure my laptop doesn't overheat, because that would be extremely bad. Alrighty, so he lays on his bed as if in a dream. The nymph Necile, who had reared him and been his foster mother, was still youthful and strong and beautiful, and it seemed to her but a short time since this aged, grey-bearded man had lain in her arms and smiled on her with his innocent baby lips. In this is shown the difference between mortals and immortals. It was fortunate that the great Ak came to the forest at that time. Necile sought him with troubled eyes and told him the fate that threatened their friend Claus. At once, the master became grave, and he leaned upon his axe and stroked his grizzled beard thoughtfully for many minutes. Then suddenly, he stood up straight and poised his powerful head with firm resolve, and stretched out his great right arm as if determined on doing some mighty need. For a thought had come to him so grand in its conception that all the world might well bow before the master woodsman and honor his name forever. It is well known that when the great Ak once undertakes to do a thing, he never hesitates an instant. Now he summoned his fleetest messengers, and sent them in a flash to many parts of the earth, and when they were gone, he turned to the anxious Necile and comforted her, saying, "Be of good heart, my child. Our friend still lives, and now run to your queen and tell her that I have summoned a council of all the immortals of the world to meet with me here in Burzee this night. If they obey and hearken unto my words, Claus will drive his reindeer for countless ages yet to come." Sorry, need my tea. Peppermint tea. All right. Okay. At midnight, there was a wondrous scene in the ancient forest of Burzee, where for the first time in many centuries, the rulers of the immortals who inhabit the earth were gathered together. Peppermint tea! Yummy! Indeed. I like peppermint tea. It's one of my favorites. And it's fitting considering it's Christmas time, so yeah. Alrighty. The immortals were gathered together. There was the queen of the water sprites, whose beautiful form was as clear as crystal, but continually dripped water on the bank of moss where she sat. And beside her was the king of the sleep face, who carried a wand from the end of which a fine dust fell all around, so that no mortal could keep awake long enough to see him, as mortal eyes were sure to close in sleep as soon as the dust filled them. And next to him sat the Gnome King, whose people inhabit all that region under the earth's surface, where they guarded the precious metals and the jewel stones that lie buried in rock and ore. At his right hand stood the king of the sound imps, who had wings on his feet, for his people are swift to carry all sounds that are made. When they are busy, they carry the sounds but short distances, for there are many of them. But sometimes they speed with sounds to places miles and miles away from where they were made. The king of the sound imps had an anxious and careworn face, for most people have no consideration for his imps, and especially the boys and girls make a great many unnecessary sounds which the imps are obliged to carry where they might be better employed. Excuse me. The next in the circle of immortals was the king of the wind demons, slender of frame, restless and uneasy at being confined into one place for even an hour. Once a while he would leave his place and circle around the glade, and each time he did this, the fairy queen was obliged to untangle the flowing locks of her golden hair and tuck them back of her pink ears. But she did not complain, for it was not often that the king of the wind demons came into the heart of the forest. After the fairy queen, whose home, you know, was in old Burzee, came the king of the light elves with his two princes, Flash and Twilight. at his back. He never went anywhere without his princes, for they were so mischievous that he dared not let them wander alone. Mm. Prince Flash bore a lightning bolt in his right hand and a horn of gunpowder in his left, and his bright eyes roved constantly around as if he longed to use his blinding flashes. Prince Twilight held a great snuffer in one hand and a big black cloak in the other, and it is well known that unless Twilight is carefully watched, the snuffers or the cloak will throw everything into darkness, and darkness is the greatest enemy of the King of the Light is the greatest enemy the King of the Light Elves has. And on top of a pile of rocks sat Krampus, smoking dandelions in a large wooden pipe. I honestly can see him doing that. And pipe smoking is always a win. So, that if Krampus were in this story, which he is not, I could see him doing that. Let's see. So, in addition to the immortals I have named were the King of the Nooks, who had come from his home in the jungles of India, and the King of the Rills, who lived among the gay flowers and luscious fruits of Valencia. Sweet Queen Zerline of the Wind Nymphs completed the circle of immortals. But in the center of this circle sat three others who possessed power so great that all the kings and queens showed them reverence. These were Ak, the master woodsman of the world, who rules the forests and the orchards of the groves, and Kern, the master husbandman of the world, who rules the grain fields and the meadows and the gardens, and Bo, the master mariner of the world, who rules the seas and all the craft that float thereon, and all other immortals are more or less subject to these three. When all had assembled, the master woodsman of the world stood up to address them, since he himself had summoned them to the council. Very clearly he told them the story of Claus, beginning at the time when as a babe he had been adopted a child of the forest, and telling of his noble and generous nature, and his lifelong labors to make children happy. And now, said Ak, when he has won the love of all the world, the spirit of death is hovering over him. Of all men who have inhabited the earth, none other so well deserves immortality. For such a life cannot be spared so long as there are children of mankind to miss him and to grieve over his loss. We immortals are the servants of the world, and to serve the world we were permitted in the beginning to exist. And what one of us is more worthy of immortality than this man, Claus, who so sweetly ministers to the little children? He paused and glanced around the circle to find every immortal listening to him eagerly and nodding approval. Finally, the king of the wind demons, who had been whistling softly to himself, cried out, "What is your desire, O Ak?" "To bestow upon Claus the mantle of immortality," said Ak boldly. That this demand was wholly unexpected was proved by the immortals springing to their feet and looking into each other's face with dismay, and then upon Ak with wonder. For it was a grave matter, this parting with the mantle of immortality. The Queen of Water Sprites spoke in her low, clear voice, and the words sounded like raindrops splashing upon a window pane. "In all the world there is but one mantle of immortality," she said. And the King of the Sound Face added, "It has existed since it has existed since the beginning, and no mortal has ever dared to claim it." And the master mariner of the world arose, stretched his limbs, saying, "Only by vote of every immortal can it be bestowed upon a mortal." "I know all this," answered Ak quietly, "but the mantle exists, and if it was created, as you say in the beginning, it was because the Supreme Master knew that some day it would be required. Until now, no mortal has deserved it, but who among you dares deny that the good Claus deserves it? Will you not all vote to bestow it upon him?" They were silent, still looking upon one another questioningly. And I need to get more tea. I shout so loud because the theatrics. When I read, I have to get into the theatrics. It can't be helped. Okay, looking at each other questioningly. "And what use is the mantle of immortality unless it is worn?" demanded Ak. "What will it profit any one of us to allow it to remain in its lonely shrine for all time to come?" "Enough!" cried the Gnome King abruptly. "We will vote on the matter, yes or no. For my part, I say yes." "And I," said the Fairy Queen promptly, and Ak rewarded her with a smile. "My people in Burzee tell me they have learned to love him. Therefore, I vote to give Claus the mantle," said the King of the Rills. "He is already a comrade of the Nooks," announced the ancient king of that band. "Let him have immortality. Let him have it. Let him have it," sighed the King of the Wind Demons. "Why not?" asked the King of the Sleep Fays. "He never disturbs my slumbers. He never disturbs the slumbers my people allow humanity. Let the good Claus become immortal." "I do not object," said the King of the Sound Imps. "Nor I," murmured the Queen of the Water Spirits. "If Claus does not receive the mantle, it is clear no other can ever claim it," remarked the King of the Light Elves. "So let us have done with the thing for all time." "The Wood Nymphs were the first to adopt him," said Queen Sirline. "Of course I shall vote to make him immortal." It's like, "I vote that Hufflepuff wins the House Cup," Krampus argued, clearly confused on why they were all gathered. I mean, I think, hypothetically speaking, if Krampus were there, I think he would know that they were voting on whether to give Claus immortality or not. And again, I think Claus would try and befriend Krampus, and so I think Krampus would vote that he be given immortality, but yeah. Matt, you and Krampus, my goodness. Okay. Ak now turned to the master husbandman of the world, who held up his right arm and said, "Yes." After which Ak, with sparkling eyes and smiling face, cried out, "I thank you, fellow immortals, who all have voted yes. So to our dear Claus we shall fall the one mantle of immortality that is in our power to bestow. Let, excuse me. Let us fetch it at once," said the Fakey. "I'm in a hurry." They bowed assent, and instantly the forest glade was deserted, but in a place midway between the earth and the sky was suspended a gleaming crypt of gold and platinum, aglow with soft lights shed from the faucets of countless gems. Within a high dome hung the precious mantle of immortality, and each immortal placed a hand on the hem of the splendid robe, and said with one voice, "We bestow this mantle upon Claus, who is called the patron saint of children." At this, the mantle came away from its lofty crypt, and they carried it to the house in the Laughing Valley. The spirit of death was crouching very near to the bedside of Claus. As the immortals approached, she sprang up and motioned them back with an angry gesture. But when her eyes fell upon the mantle they bore, she shrank away with a low moan of disappointment, and quitted that house forever. Softly and silently, the immortal band dropped upon Claus the precious mantle, and it closed about him and sank into the outlines of his body and disappeared from view. It became a part of his being, and neither mortal nor immortal might ever take it from him. Then the kings and queens who had wrought this great deed dispersed to their various homes, and all were well contented that they had added another immortal to their band. And Claus slept on, the red blood of everlasting life coursing swiftly through his veins, and on his brow was a tiny drop of water that had fallen from the ever-melting gown of the Queen of Water Sprites, and over his lips hovered a tender kiss that had been left by the sweet nymph Necile, for she had stolen in when the others were gone, to gaze with rapture upon the immortal form of her foster son. And I find it interesting that the spirit of death is depicted as a woman in this. And I mean, in the 2002 adaptation of The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, the angel of death was also depicted as a woman, though she doesn't say anything or make any motion. She just looks and sees that Ak has the mantle of immortality. She smiles and she leaves. She smiles with understanding. But I find it interesting because for most of the time, death is usually depicted as male. It's just something I've noticed. All right. Um, Sorry if you hear any background noise. Family, you know. 1,000 years? 1,000 years later, Santa Claus, why am I still alive? Why do I get my chance at eternal peace? Dang it. Oh my gosh. Well, here's the thing. Santa Claus enjoyed making children happy and making toys for them. So, I mean, I think he would enjoy doing that great work forever. I don't know. But this is just a story. Chapter the second. When the world grew old. The next morning, when Santa Claus opened his eyes and gazed around the familiar room, which he had feared he might never see again, he was astonished to find his old strength renewed, and to feel the red blood of perfect health coursing through his veins. He sprang from his bed and stood where the bright sunshine came in through his window and flooded him with its merry, dancing rays. He did not then understand what had happened to restore him the vigor of youth, but in spite of the fact that his beard remained the color of snow and that wrinkles still lingered in the corners of his bright eyes, old Santa Claus felt as brisk and merry as a boy of 16, and was soon whistling contentedly as he busied himself fashioning new toys. Then Nat came to him and told of the mantle of immortality and how Claus had won it through his love for little children. It made old Santa look grave for a moment to think he had been so favored, but it also made him glad to realize that how he need never fear being parted from his dear ones. At once he began preparations for making a remarkable assortment of pretty and amusing playthings, and in larger quantities than ever before. For now that he might always devote himself to his work, he decided that no child in the world, poor or rich, should hereafter go without a Christmas gift if he could manage to supply it. The world was new in the days when dear old Santa Claus first began toy making and won, by his loving deeds, the mantle of immortality, and the task of supplying cheering words, sympathy, and pretty playthings to all the young of his race did not seem a difficult undertaking at all. But every year more and more children were born into the world, and these, when they grew up, began spreading slowly all over the face of the earth, seeking new homes, so that Santa Claus found each year that his journeys must extend farther and farther from the Laughing Valley, and that even the packs of toys must be made larger and ever larger. So at length he took counsel with his fellow immortals, how his work might keep pace with the increasing number of children, that none might be neglected. And the immortals were so greatly interested in his labors that they gladly rendered him their assistance. Mm. Oh, I think Santa Claus would love using his immortality to make children happy forever, but I also think a small part of him would be afraid or upset about living forever. Maybe, but we don't know. And I mean, eventually he does get a wife, Mrs. Claus. It doesn't happen in this story, I don't think, but in other adaptations, he does get a wife, and so he's not alone. So he's not alone in his immortality. Plus, he also has his family of Brzee. So let's see their assistants. Ak gave him his man Kilter, the silent and the swift, and the Nook Prince gave him Peter, who was more crooked and less surly than any of his brothers, and the Real Prince gave him Nutter, the sweetest tempered Ryl ever known, and the fairy queen gave him Whisk. Whisk! Oh my gosh, I remember him from the 2002 special. I didn't think he'd be in here. Oh my goodness. Whisk, that tiny, mischievous, but lovable fairy who knows today almost as many children as does Santa Claus himself. With these people to help make the toys, to keep his house in order, and to look after the sledge and the harness, Santa Claus found it much easier to prepare his yearly load of gifts, and his days began to follow another, smoothly and pleasantly. Yet after a few generations his worries were renewed, for it was remarkable how the number of people continued to grow, and how many more children there were every year to be served. When the people filled all the cities and lands of one country, they wandered into another part of the world, and the men cut down the trees in many of the great forests that had been ruled by Ak, and with the wood they built new cities, and where the forests had been were fields of grain and herds of browsing cattle. You might think the master woodsman would rebel at the loss of his forest, but not so. The wisdom of Ak was mighty and far-seeing. Whisk! Yay! Yes. I don't know why, it just made me happy to remember. Mm. Which in the 2002 special he can shapeshift, and I think he he met Claus when he was a baby, and he came into the Fort of Berzee via catapult. Why? I don't know. But still, that'd be kind of fun. Catapulting somewhere. Sorry. Farsine, the world was made for men, said he to Santa Claus, and I have but guarded the forests until men needed them for their use. I am glad my strong trees can furnish shelter for men's weak bodies and warm them through the cold winters. But I hope they will not cut down all the trees, for mankind needs the shelter of the woods in summer as much as the warmth of blazing logs in the winter. And however crowded the world may grow, I do not think men will ever come to Berzee, nor to the great black forest, nor to the wooded wilderness of Braz. Braz. Yeah, Braz. Pretty sure that's how it says, Braz. Unless they seek their shades for pleasure and not to destroy their giant trees. If I remember correctly, the very first Christmas tree was a gift given by a king to his wife on Christmas morning. That is one adaptation. In here, Santa Claus basically decorates a tree with candies and candles and stuff as a gift to these children who were neglected by their parents. And he peeks into their tent and he shouts, "Merry Christmas," and the children see the beautiful tree, and then the parents become better. And I would hope so for the sake, considering Matt Newcomb's insistent of Krampus. Which, I mean, yeah. Krampus don't mess around. You don't want to get on Krampus's list. Don't want to get Krampus's attention. Anywho. By and by, people made ships from the tree trunks and crossed over oceans and built cities in far lands. But the oceans made little difference to the journeys of Santa Claus. His reindeer sped over the waters as swiftly as over the land, and his sledge headed from east to west and followed in the wake of the sun. So that as the earth rolled slowly over Santa Claus had all of 24 hours to encircle it to each Christmas Eve, and the speedy reindeer enjoyed these wonderful journeys more and more. Excuse me. Jeez, too many crickets. So year after year, and generation after generation, and century after century, the world grew older, and the people became more numerous, and the labors of Santa Claus steadily increased. The fame of his good deeds spread to every household where children dwelt, and all the little ones loved him dearly, and the fathers and mothers honored him for the happiness he had given them when they too were young, and the aged grandsires and granddames, grandmas and grandpas, remembered him with tender gratitude and blessed his name. Here's a picture of a tree. A good tree. It is a very nice tree. Chapter the 3rd. The Deputies of Santa Claus. Here's a picture. Sorry about not showing all the pictures like I usually do. But next time, I'm sorry for leaving so many comments. I hope I'm not being annoying. You're not being annoying, Crazy Anime Gamer. I love reading the comments. I like reading them as I read you guys these stories. And I mean, I would hope you like these stories. I certainly try and choose the best ones. But yeah, I'm sorry for not showing all the illustrations in here. Next time I have a story with illustrations, I will show you all the pictures. I promise. Cross my heart. Chapter 3rd, The Deputies of Santa Claus. However, there was one evil following in the path of civilization that caused Santa Claus a vast amount of trouble before he discovered a way to overcome it. But fortunately, it was the last trial he was forced to undergo. One Christmas Eve, when his reindeer had leaped to the top of a new building, Santa Claus was surprised to find that the chimney had been built much smaller than usual, but he had no time to think about it just then, so he drew in his breath and made himself as small as possible and slid down the chimney. I ought to be at the bottom by this time, he thought as he continued to slip downward, but no fireplace of any sort met his view, and by he reached the very end of the chimney, which was in the cellar. This is odd, he reflected, much puzzled by this experience. If there is no fireplace, what on earth is the chimney good for? I love listening to you reading stories to us. Well, thank you. I have a lot of stories, and it's a good way to add variety to my ASMR channel. And I'm glad you guys like the stories I tell. My Velcro got caught in blankets. Okay, there we go. There. You're just readjusting. Lots of hiccups. Welcome to the live stream. Wouldn't be a live stream of mine if something weren't going wrong. So, but yeah, I'm glad you like listening to the stories. It makes me happy. Let me just get another drink of tea. Okay, here we go. So what is the chimney good for? Then he began to climb out again and found it hard work, the space being so small. On his way up, he noticed a thin, round pipe sticking through the side of the chimney, but could not guess what it was for. Finally, he reached the roof and said to the reindeer, "There was no need of my going down that chimney, for I could find no fireplace through which to enter the house." Cameo from my mom. She brought me avocado toast. You're a great storyteller. Well, thank you, Matt. But yeah, avocado toast. Very healthy. Oh my gosh. Merry Christmas! You get a surprise cameo from my mom! Yay! Yes, my mom is one of the best moms. And I know that sounds biased, but I mean, she's my mom. And I wouldn't have any other mom. Mom visit! Yes, she brought me avocado toast. But yeah, that's my mom. I get some writing from her. She wrote a bunch of poems back in her high school. Matt Newcomb, here, raise Christmas cup of hot chocolate. Yes, to mothers and to fathers too. Though I don't think you guys have seen my dad on here. Oh well, I'm sure you'll see him eventually. I know you've seen my brother, one brother at least. Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. Back to the story. Alrighty. I don't have a cup of hot chocolate, but I have a cup of tea. So yeah, here, to mothers. Anywho, so okay, there was no need of my going down that chimney, for I could find no fireplace through which to enter the house. I fear the children who live there must go without playthings this Christmas. Then he drove on, but soon came to another new house with a small chimney. This caused Santa Claus to shake his head doubtfully, but he tried the chimney nevertheless, and found it exactly like the other. Moreover, he nearly stuck fast in the narrow flue and tore his jacket trying to get out again. Although he came to several such chimneys that night, he did not venture to descend into any more of them. What in the world are people thinking of to build such useless chimneys? He examined. In all the years I have traveled with my reindeer, I have never seen the like before. I think we've heard your dad's voice calling you to dinner or something before. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, my dad, I get the writing gene on both sides. My mom writes poetry and my dad, storyteller. Lots of storytellers in the family. And I think I went on a semi-deep tangent about why stories are so important to me in one live stream. But I mean, like, in another live stream, I might just explain, why I love stories so much, which will be kind of hard to explain because it's kind of vast in a way. Anyway, back to the story. Oh, jeez. Oh my goodness. It's one of the reasons why I love these live streams. They're so random, but they're wonderful. And I have such a wonderful audience, so yeah. Okay. True enough, but Santa Claus had not then discovered that stoves had been invented and were fast coming into use. When he did find it out, he wondered how the builders of those houses could have so little consideration for him, when they knew very well it was his custom to climb down chimneys and enter houses by way of the fireplace. Perhaps men who built those houses had outgrown their love for toys and were indifferent whether Santa Claus called on their children or not. Whatever the explanation might be, the poor children were forced to bear the burden of grief and disappointment. The following year, Santa Claus found more and more of the new-fashioned chimneys that had no fireplace, and the next year still more. The third year, so numerous the narrow chimneys became, he even had a few toys left in his sledge that he was unable to give away, because he could not get to the children. The matter had now become so serious that it worried the good man greatly, and he decided to talk it over with Kilter and Peter and Nutter and Whisk. Kilter already knew something about it, for it had been his duty to run around to all the houses just before Christmas and gather up the notes and letters to Santa Claus that the children had written, telling what they wished to put in their stockings or hung on their Christmas trees. But Kilter was a silent fellow and seldom spoke of what he saw in the cities and villages. The others were very indignant. Krampus would suggest his method, a brick to a window. It's like, Krampus, just do what I do. Brick to the window. Claus, no, I am not going to break windows, Krampus. There's gotta be another way inside that does not involve property damage. I know you like breaking things, but sometimes breaking things is not always the answer. Again, I think Claus and Krampus would be friends, but it's like Claus is like that one friend who is trying to, like, maintain the peace, as it were. Because Grandpa's kind of mischievous. It's like, here's a brick, break the window. It's fine. Alrighty. So the others were indignant. Those people act as if they do not wish their children to be made happy, said sensible Peter in a vexed tone. The idea of shutting out such a generous friend to their little ones. But it is my intention to make children happy, whether their parents wish it or not, returned Santa Claus. Years ago, when I first began making toys, children were even more neglected by their parents than they are now. So I have learned to pay no attention to the thoughtless or selfish parents, but to consider only the longings of childhood. You are right, my master, said Nutter the Rill. Many children would lack a friend if you did not consider them and try to make them happy. Then, declared the laughing Whisk, we must abandon any thought of using these new-fashioned chimneys and become burglars and break into the houses some other way. Whisk, you need to stop hanging around Krampus so much. Not gonna break windows. Becoming burglars. Sorry. I don't know why. It's funny to me. Anyway. What way? asked Santa Claus. Why? Why, walls of brick and wood and plaster are nothing to fairies. I can easily pass through them whenever I wish, and so can Peter and Nutter and Kilter. Is it not so, comrades? I often pass through the walls when I gather up the letters, said Kilter, and that was a long speech for him, and so surprised Peter and Nutter that their big round eyes nearly popped out of their heads. Therefore, continued the fairy, you may as well take us with you on your next journey, and when we come to one of those houses with stoves instead of fireplaces, we will distribute the toys to the children without the need of using a chimney. That seems to me a good plan, replied Santa Claus, well pleased at having solved the problem. We will try it next year. That was how the fairy, the pixie, the knook, and the rill all rode in the sledge with their master the following Christmas Eve, and they had no trouble at all in entering the new-fashioned houses and leaving toys for the children that lived in them. And their deft services not only relieved Santa Claus of much labor, but enabled him to complete his own work more quickly than usual, so that the merry party found themselves at home with an empty sledge a full hour before daybreak. Krampus would frown at the idea. Property damage always warmed his heart. Again, I really think you should write an origin story on how Krampus came to be. I really think you should. You would be very good at it. And I mean, you could even add illustrations if you wanted to, but yeah, it's like Whisk in a burglar costume. It's like, Krampus made it for me. Currently doing that. Nice. Well, again, when you can, send me some of it, because I want to read it. I'm curious to see what you do, and if you take any of my ideas to heart. I am curious. I'm actually doing that. Yay! Anyway, good plan. More quickly, an hour per day. Okay. The only drawback on the journey was that the mischievous Whisk persisted in tickling the reindeer with a long feather to see them jump, and Santa Claus found it necessary to watch him every minute and to tweak his long ears once or twice to make him behave himself. I mean, when I was a kid, my parents did that if I wouldn't listen, and it certainly helped. They just grabbed my ear and they twisted, which, yeah, that does hurt. But, I mean, that's what my parents did. They tweaked my ears. They also tweaked my brother's ears because, well, I wasn't all a good child. I got into trouble quite a bit, actually. But yeah, anyway. To tweak ears to make him behave himself. Whisk, you mischievous thing, tickling the reindeer with a feather. My goodness. I love putting honey in chamomile tea. I wonder if it would taste good with peppermint tea. Probably. Personally, though, no, I just drink my tea straight. No flavoring. I find that the flavor the tea bag is plenty enough. But that is just me. So yeah, tweaking his ears. But taken all together, the trip was a great success, and to this day the four little folk always accompany Santa Claus on his yearly ride and help him in the distribution of his gifts. But the indifference of parents, which had so annoyed the good saint, did not continue very long, and Claus soon found they were really anxious he should visit their homes on Christmas Eve and leave presents for the children. So, to lighten his task, which was fast becoming very difficult indeed, old Santa decided to ask the parents to assist him. Get your Christmas trees all ready for my coming, he said to them, and I shall be able to leave the presents without loss of time, and you can put them on the trees when I am gone. And to others he said, see that the children's stockings are hung up in readiness for my coming, and I can fill them there as quick as a wink. And often, when parents were kind and good natured, Santa Claus would simply fling down his package of gifts and leave the fathers and mothers to fill the stockings after he had darted away on his sledge. I will make all loving parents my deputies, cried the jolly old fellow, and they shall help me do my work, for in this way I shall save many precious minutes, and few children need be neglected for lack of time to visit them. Excuse me. Besides carrying around the big pack in his swift-flying sledge, old Santa began to send great heaps of toys to the toy shops, so that if parents wanted larger supplies for their children, they could easily get them. And if any children were by chance missed by Santa Claus on his yearly rounds, they could go to the toy shops and get enough to make them happy and contented. For the loving friend of the little ones decided that no child, if he could help it, should long for toys in vain. And the toy shops also proved convenient whenever a child fell ill and needed a new toy to amuse it. And sometimes on birthdays, the fathers and mothers go to the toy shops and get pretty gifts for their children in honor of the happy event. Perhaps you will now understand how, in spite of the bigness of the world, Santa Claus is able to supply all the children with beautiful gifts. To be sure, the old gentleman is rarely seen these days, but it is not because he tries to keep out of sight, I assure you. Santa Claus is the same loving friend of children that in the old days used to play and romp with them by the hour, and I know he would love to do the same now, if he had the time. I'm writing it to be read along with the life and adventures of Santa Claus. So far, I've written Krampus's first outing, and I've made sure to include Krampus. Fair enough. Fair enough. Creative liberties, you do you, and yeah, I'm just waiting for the switches. Krampus switches, but like the strip of wood, but yeah, just you do you. Good on you, Matt Newcomb. And I mean, technically, this story is in the public domain, so you won't get sued for making a Krampus story. Which that's the thing. I always try and make sure that the stories are in public domain. That way, I don't get in trouble for reading them. Because I think I might get in trouble. It might get bashed with copyright if I were to read stories that were copyrighted. So I don't know. Let's see. If he had the time. Okay. But you see, he is so busy all the year making toys and so hurried on that one night when he visits our homes with his packs that he comes and goes among us like a flash, and it is almost impossible to catch a glimpse of him. And although there are millions and millions more children in the world than there used to be, Santa Claus has never been known to complain of their increasing numbers. The more the merrier, he cries with his jolly laugh, and the only difference to him is the fact that his little workmen have to make their busy fingers fly faster every year to satisfy the demands of so many little ones. In all this world, there is nothing so beautiful as a happy child, says good old Santa Claus, and if he had his way, the children would all be beautiful, for all would be happy. And here's the illustration, and that is the end of the life and adventures of Santa Claus. And I mentioned before in part 1 that this was the first time I was ever reading the story. And I will say this after I fix my speakers. I will say that this was this was my first time reading the story of the life and adventures of Santa Claus. I loved it tremendously. Like, as a kid, I loved the film versions, the Rankin Bass version, which I only saw a few times, and then the 2002 animated version, which again I own both. But reading the story itself, no surprise, I love it like I love the movies, and I know I've been I know I've been bashed by copyright for singing songs for auditions in private videos, and hooray! Beautiful story! Yeah. But I really like the story. I don't know all the details myself, but I think there was actual Santa Claus whose real name was Christopher. I think he tried to make sure all the children in his village got presents. Maybe, but there was a Saint Nicholas who happened to be a saint, I believe, in Turkey, and he did the things that Santa Claus did, trying to give gifts and make toys for the children. And I believe he filled their shoes. Which I think you'd have to do more research, but there actually was a Saint Nicholas, which is where we get the Santa Claus from. But I enjoyed the story, and there are quite a few adaptations of the story of Santa and how he came to be the person we know and love, and how he came into existence, how he went down in history. But, and I mean, I think I mentioned one of them. I mentioned Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Unfortunately, there wasn't a St. Krampus. But we do got the Austrians and the Germans for those legends, which I mean, understandable. Parents wanting their children to behave. Which I mean, yeah, but again, I mentioned that there was Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which is one version of showing how Santa Claus came to be. But then on Netflix, if you haven't seen it already, there is another adaptation called Claus, which I'm going to type it down in here for you guys. It's spelled Klaus. Klaus. And that's another film I really enjoy, and me and my family watch it every year. And it just gets me in the feels and it makes me so happy to watch every time I see it, because it also tells a story of how Santa Claus came to be. It's very funny, 2D animated, gorgeously done, acting just, it's one of those gems. You can literally feel the creativity and the love and the effort that was put into it. But excuse me. But with the different stories of how Santa Claus came to be, there's always the same message, sort of. How one act of kindness sparks another. This is quite prevalent in Claus, but you see selfless giving. Because in all the adaptations of Santa Claus's life and existence, he gives toys to children freely, and he never asks for anything in return. He does it out of the compassion and kindness of his heart. And again, the Christmas season. This is the one time of the year where hate seems to vanish. And the term peace on earth, goodwill towards men, really means something. Again, this holiday stopped a war because they remembered this holiday and the power behind it. Claus, you better watch. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Yes. My personal favorite Christmas movie is Gremlins. It's definitely not conventional, but it has a good story and characters that feel real. Well, I'm glad. But yeah. And I mean, I love this Christmas time of year because, again, peace on earth and goodwill towards men. And I know there are people, it's like, well, still, there's so much negative in the world. And yeah, there is, but doesn't the happiness on Christmas Day take away from some of that? Doesn't it? I highly recommend you watch Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It's on YouTube for free, but Fred Astaire, I believe, is the guy who voices the postman, and he explains it a lot better. But yeah, this time of year is just very special and comforting. And it's exciting because after Christmas, there's the new year. And the new year is magical in a way. Because the new year, it's like you spent your entire life in this year, good and bad, and maybe you had a good year, maybe you had a bad year, or maybe it was a year in between. But the moment that midnight hits on December 31st, it is a clean slate, a new year, and every single thing that happened in the year before, good and bad, just disappears. Anyways, who or what started the whole leaving Santa food thing? I don't think it was always cookies and milk either. That is a very good question, crazy anime gamer. In Claus, the Netflix film, the main character Jesper helps Claus deliver the presents, and he accepts the milk and cookies. For other realms, I feel like for other countries of the world, they leave other things. Like I believe Germans leave sausage. And then there's another Christmas tradition that basically a Yule log that uh, poops out candy after being beaten, and that Yule log gets like sweet cakes and some wine. I've been compared to young Santa and Santa Claus is coming to town, probably because I'm a ginger and I sing. Now that I have a fully red beard, it's a live by the connection. Well, hey, I think that would be very flattering, and I bet you're extremely handsome. So, but yeah, I don't know entirely who started that, but I do know that there is a tradition going back when the superstitions and the belief of fairies was very prevalent, that it was often a custom to leave out offerings of food and drink to the fairies. Oh, stop, you're making me blush. Well, you know what? It's true. I bet you're really handsome and you're going to find someone who makes you happy and you're going to have a very happy life together. But yeah. There, in various folk tales and mythologies, there's the tradition of leaving food and offerings to certain figures as sort of a way to appease them. With household spirits, it's prevalent. You leave them food and milk in return for the hard work that they do. Because household spirits, when you're asleep, they basically just do all your work. Laundry, cook, cleaning, etc., and so forth, and every delight. And and this isn't just done as a form of payment for hard work, crazy anime gamer. I bet the reindeer don't appreciate the after effects of the sausage. No, but yeah, and the giving and offering of food and drink isn't just used as a payment, it's also used as a way to appease and also as a protection, like a sort of ward. For example, Catchi, or Catsith, are a type of fairy cat that are known to steal souls from people. I have that someone, and she certainly makes me happy. She strongly says I'm young Santa. Then that means she is Miss Jessica, the school teacher, and she's your Mrs. Claus. How romantic. Makes me happy. Anyway, yes, Matt Newcomb is a good person, and I hope that he has a very Merry Christmas. But yeah, anyway, so Catchi, they steal souls. Often, it was often believed that a cat leaping over a cradle meant that it was stealing the child's soul, and a way to prevent the Catchi from stealing a person's soul was to leave a saucer of milk out for them. So, I hope that does answer your question, crazy anime gamer, at least a little bit. If you wanted me to make a stream or a video about why food offerings and such, I'd be willing to do it. I'd be willing to do research. I'm always looking for new things to add to my channel. So if you guys want me to do another series about hey, why all these fantasy and fairy tale things? Why why these, like, I mean, a new year's coming and I want to add more to my channel. If you guys have any suggestions, like, let me know and I will try to provide. So, yeah, but hopefully that answers your question, Crazy MA Gamer. For my family, at least, we always make sure to leave milk and cookies for Santa, but then we also leave a carrot for the reindeer. Happy Krampus! If possible, I might find a way to send you a video of me singing. A little Christmas treat for me. Aw, well, thank you. I sing too, and I'm super excited for church. Hopefully we get to sing my favorite Christmas song, because when I sing it, I go full in, very loud, and just, I don't know why, I just get so passionate, because it's my favorite. The Christmas song I am talking about, of course, is none other than Michael W. Smith's Gloria. Like, you pretty much didn't answer my question. Thanks. Well, yay! I'm glad. I tried to, at least. But yeah, if you guys want me to add certain content or talk about certain things, just let me know. Let me know in the comments below, and I will certainly try to provide, because I like doing this. I don't make money off of this, but it's fun. I like reading stories to you guys. I like making the Monster Girl ASMRs. I like being able to reach you guys and share my creativity and my passion with you guys. And so, yeah, if there's something you want me to add to my channel for the coming new year, let me know in the comments below, or comment on one of my future videos, and I'll see what I can do about it. All right, we're gonna listen to one last song, and then I'll have to end the live stream, because I still have Christmas presents to wrap. I haven't gotten around to it because I've been so busy with work and life keeping me on my toes. I haven't had time to wrap a single present. To keep the sky so blue. I work at the desks of the Cape Symphony, and I get asked to join choir segments of Christmas concerts. It's fun. Nice. My job is a job. I'm glad for it, and it helps me make money so I can, stay afloat and be able to buy things like books and candy and ramen and drink. But yeah, so this live stream was going to be shorter, I said early on, because it's just 3 chapters. But once again, we're in the hour segment, and this is usually a theme for these stories, for these live streams of mine. I'm not complaining, though. I like talking with you guys. But it's Christmas, I know. But my work has just been keeping me really, really busy. And I mean, we're short-handed, and they need people. That's why it's longer. Yeah. But I mean, my videos my live streams are always pretty long on here in general. But yeah, work's been keeping me so busy. I haven't had time to wrap a single Christmas present. And I gotta work Christmas Eve. But my job is, I have Christmas off, and so I'm excited. And I clean things for a living. I do deli work, basically, and then I work a grill outside on the weekends. But that is what I do, and I'm excited because my uncle changed the time so I could be able to attend the Christmas Eve sermon and then go to the Christmas Eve sermon or Christmas Eve party, which I'm super duper excited because we always have a big Christmas Eve party at my uncle's house. We eat food, there's hot chocolate, there's mulled wine, which I'll be able to partake in because I am of age, and I think I'm going to like it because mulled wine is basically hot, spicy wine. I think I might like it. And also we open presents over there, so it's just super fun, and I'm so excited. And yeah, that song ended. Yeah, that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed the story as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. And I will be kind of quiet for the rest of this week because I got a bunch of Christmas stuff to do and all. But Merry Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas to you too. But yeah, keep an eye out on my channel on Christmas morning because there's going to be something special left for you on my channel. So yeah, that'll about do it for today. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the story as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye. goodness. Oh my goodness. Cramp Krampus ASMR? No. It's a surprise though. And if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, now would it, Matthew? And anyway, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Exactly. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Ah, my goodness. This is so much fun. I have the greatest followers in the world. End.